I've got really tragic news today, guys. I'm really sorry to tell you this way. I had hoped that I wouldn't need to, but it turns out that Representative Jasmine Crockett is under FEC investigation over her Act Blue campaign donations.
No.
Yeah. So apparently a complaint to the FEC was filed by conservative advocacy group, the Coolidge-Reagan Foundation, in March against her with respect to her fundraising activity on Act Blue, as well as alleged voter intimidation. And a donor was reported to have given 53 separate donations to her campaign that totaled $595 and were made through the Act Blue donations portal. And the donations were tied to a 73-year-old Texas resident named Randy Best. But Best's wife said she didn't know anything about the donations. And I wish, gosh, literally was just talking to the guy who's running against her on the Republican ticket. His name is Sheldon Daniels. And I was just talking to his chief of staff. And Sheldon Daniels went to this man's house and was like, hey, did you make these donations? And the wife was like, I know nothing about this. And I just told her, I was like, you have to go get in front of that man, Randy Best, go get in front of him and ask him directly on camera if he did it. And that will blow up against Jasmine Crockett. So I hope that he does it. But now we have an official FEC investigation into Jasmine Crockett's campaign, which this says that it was $870,000 of Act Blue donations, and that it's unclear how many of these are similarly fraudulent transactions made in the name of unsuspecting innocent people who did not actually provide the funds. It's almost like Act Blue has just been acting as this giant money laundering operation for the Democrats. That's crazy conspiracy theory. That kind of talk is why I'm demonetized from YouTube. So we don't need to get into that. But the FEC is now investigating it.
Should. I mean, look, I want to be fair. I think there's a lot of politics. Doesn't really matter what side of the aisle that you're on that's fraudulent. It is the way that I think, or the avenue that I think a lot of people travel to enrich themselves in some sort of way. And as well as hiding money just in general. That's just a really creative way to, I don't say creative, but it's a way to do it. I mean, you can just look at Congress in general. I mean, I feel like we talk about it every week, how it comes under question how so many of these people get rich despite the salaries that they have. And it's not like they're somehow becoming business gurus just by getting some, congressional insight. That's not how it works. We know there's some funny money, but nothing's been done about it. And I think that in itself speaks to the fact that it exists and it's levels to it for sure. Now, what these guys are going to do about it is I would love to know, or rather to see what happens. But I'm already under the impression that most of them are a bunch of crooks. They're swindling the American people regardless. But I believe that a lot of them are also enriching themselves and just using the political system as it is to do it. I hope that there aren't people that are watching this show that believe that everything is just done by the books, or at least most of that shit is done by the books. No way.
Yeah. You would think that if people are watching this show, they probably already know.
Yeah.
But there's a certain level of disgruntlement that comes with knowing that that's happening and never seeing anything happen to these people who are doing it. Now we might actually see something happen. Wait, hold on. It couldn't happen to a more deserving person, might I just add.
You know what? It does seem that the louder they are, and we said this the other day, like the louder they are, the more controversy they stir up, the more it seems that they are getting money from different places. Now, I do think, and I think we've discussed this before, that I know this is hard for people to hear at home because their wages are quite high, as you know, in respect to regular folk. But it's not a lot of money to live on when you have to have two houses in two different locations. So either I think that people have got to stomach it and raise how much they make, the Congress people, because how much is it, Sarah? Did we say this the other day? It's like 100 and something.
175,000.
175,000. But if you need to have a house in DC, you know, and you want to maintain a house here, or wherever you are, wherever your constituents are. That's a lot of money out anyway. So that all of a sudden doesn't go as far as what it should do. So then...
Wait, are you advocating for them to get paid more?
I am, yeah.
Wow.
But you know why?
Thought I knew
Because
you.
do you know why? Because then they'd have less excuse for taking money in different.
They would
ways.
still take money in
Well,
different
that was
ways.
my next point.
They're all criminals.
That was my next point. But then they would have less of an excuse, I think, and I think that we could say, okay, well, you're going to get paid more money, but you can't do X, Y, and Z, and that needs to just be absolutely.
Oh, and then they're going to be like, okay, now we'll follow the rules. You're giving us more money
Listen,
that we're not earning. Now we'll follow the rules.
Hang on a minute. The only reason why they're not following the rules is because they're not being prosecuted for not following the rules.
So what makes you think that they would all of a sudden, if they got paid more, be like, now I'm going to follow the rules?
Because I think that things have got to change, and I think that we're look at the way Eric's.
I know.
I think
Matt wants them to raise the pay.
No,
I think
no.
$0.
I think
They should get paid $0 because they're all criminals, and I think that they should just volunteer to go serve their country through the 175,000.
Hang on a minute. Let me ask you this: the reason why, for example, that we have what we've got right now in government is because we've got a billionaire who is the president. We've got the richest man in the world doing Doge. You know, you've got all these people that are super wealthy that are in there that don't need the money, right? So they're actually getting done what they're meant to be getting done. Now, if there's a regular person out there that isn't looking to enrich themselves and they're like, okay, I want to go and run for Congress and I want to do good things, then they go, I can't do it because I don't have the dough to work both in DC and outside of DC. That's just a reality. And I'd like to think that, you know, if you do get paid a decent amount, that you can knock away those other temptations, because once you open up I'm just saying
you're coming at this though you're coming at this from the perspective that you are an honest and decent person, and you think that other people will be that way, and I just don't think, like, would you ever? Just curious, would you ever run for Congress?
Yeah.
You would?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my next point was going to be you probably would never run for Congress because they're all crooks and
but that's
losers,
the problem.
and that's why they run. And so,
but there's got to be a point. This is what I'm saying. There's got to be a point that it ends, and you start getting, really patriotic people that are doing it for the right reasons. I think there are people out there, but there's a barrier to entry.
cuss them out.
Well, no, I do believe that there should be a barrier of entry. I don't think it should necessarily be by money. I think all of these people are for the most part underqualified, number one, and they're all a bunch of crooks, right? All of them are a bunch of schemes and scams. That's all that the government for the most part is, and it sounds cliche, but I think this is more of an economic question because it operates on incentives, human action, right? This is what this is about. The government, especially Congress, has zero incentive to change. And a lot of that does come from the lack of, obviously, prosecution when they need to be in prison and nothing happens. None of those crooks actually end up going to prison. Mm-hmm. But also, it is financial, but I look at it differently from how Matthew looks at it, because for me, the finance is in that they're not working with their money that they have to earn. They're working with money that is stolen from other people, either as part of this current generation or people that are alive or future assets of the unborn. It is far different from operating like I do, in which I don't have that external funding, right? I have to make sales in order to, it has to be some sort of exchange voluntarily in order for me to get my money, right? So when you operate like that, you just see everything differently. But when you have a cozy job, right? And yeah, you are totally, it's totally understandable. You would think,
but I agree with your sentiment.
$175,000, you'd be like, well, how in the world am I going to live? Like, yeah, I totally empathize with that specific point. But just looking at the actual position that they actually feel, it does not lend itself for people that want to be honest in the first place, because it is backed by theft. I'm just being completely honest. The whole entire system is backed by theft. So you did bring up a great point with the Trumps and the Elons. These guys, they make their money elsewhere. They're proven to make their money elsewhere. They don't necessarily need this gig. Wasn't it for a while there that Trump, I don't know what's happening now, but he was basically foregoing his salary.
His salary, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, that person's looking at it completely different, right? Than a person that's like, okay, they're doing this to eat or enrich themselves. And I think government in general is such an attraction. That's why it needs to be so minimized, because in general, it's so attractive to those types that want to do very evil things, because what you can do in the government, you can't do in the private sector. It's quite literally illegal, right? And when you screw up in the private sector, that often equals your business going under, that equals bankruptcy, equals all those things. In the government, public sector, or whatever you want to call it, when you screw up, nothing happens. You get rewarded. You can even vote yourself a raise. You can do whatever, but you're not really, these guys aren't punished. So I think there needs to be some sort of incentive. If the government is to exist in the capacity that it exists in, we need to reanalyze sort of the incentives of being a government official before there's going to be any change, because as it stands right now, it only rewards you the more screwed up that you are. Solving problems, what incentive do they have to do? You can't even run for office anymore if you're actually going out there to try to solve problems. And that's why I don't think that term limits alone, though it may help, I don't think that alone is going to fix the problem. I just don't think that's even the major part of the problem. I just think it's the position in itself, and it has to be reanalyzed.
Yeah.
And if Crockett goes to prison,
I would.
If she goes to prison, or any of those Act Blue crooks go to prison or whatever, good for you.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I was hoping for like a couple like right hooks, maybe just like some F-bombs, just be like Will Smith and just slap him. Yeah, I wanted more from you, Eric. I'm just saying.
I know. I let you down.
Me.
Sorry.
I just see.
I gotta go.
Hold on. What if I was going to go and do it? You or somebody who's really competent at what they do. If you've got a lawyer that's making $150,000 a year, right? There's a reason why you get these morons in, because they can't make it in the real world. So they look and so what are you going to do for someone who is actually not in the millionaire bracket, right? Not in the lowest bracket, but is a working person? You can't just tell them, hey, listen, drop your job. What you do, you're competent at what you do, and you can make like X amount of dough over here, and you're going to come over here, and you're not going to make any money out of it. So all I'm saying is it's got to be a living wage for them to live in two.
I was going to vote for you, but now I'm not.
I'm turning into a politician.
You lost my vote. You told me that it was very quick, and you just kept talking just like a freaking politician.
You know that's quick for me.
Just like a politician. All right, we've got to go, Matt. If you like this clip and you want to see the full episode, click here. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, come on, you know you do. Click here.